A video showing SABC News anchor Chriselda voicing her concerns has gone viral on social media. Let's take a look at what came out of that.
You know what that is? Do you know? I'm not being disrespectful. Go back and do what you are supposed to do. You know none of the names of these people who work here. We grew up with these people here. Sis Pat, no. No. When you came here, this is not what we expected from you. We have great admiration for you in the journalism industry in this country. Don't let these people do this to you. The Jimmy Matthews of this world came, revered journalists in this country. Circumstances. Where are those people today? Where are those people today? We can't sleep. It's headed towards Christmas. You can't breathe.
We can't breathe.
Portia, who the newsroom cannot survive without. That is what Lester, all those people. How do you do something like that? It's not okay, ma'am. It must stop now. You need to go. Take your structure. Go with it. Go and give us something that makes sense, sir. This ship, we were here way before, sir, you were even appointed to come here. We have been keeping this ship alive. We worked during coronavirus. We were in wards every day with people who have contracted the coronavirus. People here got infected with the virus. These are mothers, fathers, grandfathers, grandmothers.
All right, joining me now to unpack the looming job cuts at the SABC is Communication Workers Union spokesperson Audrey Shabalala, as well as Right to Know campaigns Gauteng coordinator Dale McKinley. Gentlemen, good evening and thank you very much for your time tonight. Aubrey, I'll start with you. We know the Ministry of Communications and Digital Technology at this stage does not support the retrenchment of employees at the SABC, as the corporation, according to the minister, did not follow the steps outlined by the Government Technical Advisory Center. So what are the bases that the management are giving right now for going ahead with the retrenchment? Aubrey?
Oh, thank you very much. I thought you were asking my colleague. Yeah, the first point is that the issue of the Section 189, we are very clear that the process was not followed thoroughly. We are very clear that the SABC management never engaged in faith. We are very clear that there are serious legal flaws in terms of that. And the support that we got from the portfolio committee was not based on just mutual agreement. It was based on the facts that we have faced, and also that SABC is moving away from its primary mandate as a public broadcaster into a commercial space. And when you dissolve the people that are retrenched now, they will be dissolving the departments that are creating content for SABC, which will mean that SABC will have to buy the content from the private sector, and which will compromise its mandates as a public broadcaster. That's where we are.
But as Labour, Aubrey, what I'm asking, have you got sight of the operating model, which is part of the conditions of what need to be presented, the organizational structure and what it looks like, the jobs that are associated with that organizational structure? And for example, are things like a skill audit, have they been done, and what was the outcome of that?
Skills audit, no, it has not been done. As we have indicated in Parliament, that the process of skills audit is not. The structures have been changed more than 4 times double in this Section 189 process. And what has been there later on presented is what was not discussed before the CCMA. So there's a completely new structure that was presented before, that is presented now, which of course erased a number of departments that were there which were not presented initially. This brings about serious challenges. One of those challenges is that it begins to marginalize some of the languages, indigenous languages, such as Tshivenḓa, Setsonga, where their current affairs on TV will be completely removed, and some languages are being prioritized. That is a clear indication that the public broadcaster is moving away. So the structure itself, it does not necessarily address the initial question of cutting the bill, the salary bill. It does cut the salary bill, but it then increases the expenditure of SABC, because after doing that, you will have to go to the private sector to buy that particular content.
The staff optimization process itself, Aubrey, as part of the issues that have been raised, the salary bill of the SABC, 42% of it pretty much affecting that budget, that expenditure of it going to salaries. I mean, what has been done around making sure that people are not in redundant positions?
Well, absolutely not, because you'll remember what it was going to highlight to us, one amongst others, is that when you start to create new platforms, like for example in the new structure now they are talking about Parliament Radio, they are talking about digital TV, and if you have not upskilled people that are going to fill those vacancies, then it means that we are going to retrench the people that might have institutional memory, might have the knowledge and the know-how in terms of journalism, and you ought then to employ people who might not have that capacity. For example, SABC have flooded the process of 189 by saying we have 400 people that are affected. After having 400 people that are affected, you then later on say we have 175 positions that are going to be advertised, but for everyone. The process requires you to firstly deal with the affected people. After you have absorbed them, then you can see how many remaining. But now the process is only saying everyone can apply for these 175 positions, and it does exclude those who are affected. So it's not a process that is looking into assisting the SABC itself, but it's a process that will entrench these problems and deepen the crisis, as it were.
Dale, let me bring you in here. Are you surprised at all that it has come down to this?
No, we're not surprised. And in fact, for many years, the Right to Know campaign, the Communication Workers Union, and many other stakeholders have been warning about the accumulated crisis at the SABC. Let's be quite clear where this crisis emanates from. It emanates firstly from political interference in the public broadcaster, where people were put into positions of management who had no idea of the public broadcast mandate and the management, the capacity to manage an entity like this, and essentially spent huge amounts of money, wasted them, wasteful expenditure. Secondly, the other issue was that the public service and public mandate of the SABC was completely ignored. The archives, many of the programs were sold to DSTV for virtually nothing. The running of the corporation was privatized for commercial purposes, and the government basically turned its back on the SABC. Thirdly, many of the people that were hired were people at levels which were getting paid huge amounts of money, bloated management. And now what we find and we see, predictably, is you go after your workers. You go after those that are actually, as Aubrey said, producing content, the ones that actually make the corporation run. And so this is an entirely predictable kind of crisis that could have been avoided and still can be avoided if there's the political will and the necessary financial backing to actually make the SABC what it should be, which is a quality public broadcaster.
Well, the group executive saying this is the kind of process that a company going under a turnaround would certainly be experiencing, saying we've moved from what we were in 2017, a loss of 1.2 billion. We journeyed into 444 billion, and now we're at 500 billion, showing that we are actually performing better against the budget. Do you buy that?
Well, I mean, look, one could say that they have done a better job than their predecessors in terms of, but that's not saying a great deal, given the state that the SABC was in previously. But I think the fundamental issue here is not to say that we've done well by going from 2 billion to 500 million loss, is to say what is the program to build a quality public broadcaster? What do you need to do? You need to basically, if you're going to be any culling at the SABC, it needs to be at top management level. This is where the culling needs to happen, because it's a bloated bureaucracy, and it always has been. And they support the workers, support the journalists, support the technicians. And when you do that, any company which supports their workforce will get a reward in return. People will work hard, they'll be committed, and this is what we want. And so it's not to try to say to some of the management that they're not trying, but it's also to say that the politics of this, the government is the primary stakeholder in the SABC, and it has not done its job properly. So it's not simply just the management, it's the politicians themselves that need to basically have the political will to say, let's hand it to the people who know what they're doing, let's put the capacity in, and let's give the necessary resources to do that.
Dale McKinley, I appreciate your time, and Aubrey Chabalala for the Communications Workers Union.